like to call this Board of Ed workshop to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is a April 8th Board of Ed workshop meeting. The first item on the agenda will be public forum comments for agenda items only, which is the student staff voices from Primrose. We're going to go over our Primrose visit February 25th, and the capital project update. Does anyone have any public comment? Okay, then I'm going to bring us straight to our central office report.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for the time tonight to share a bit about our walkthrough that we had at Primrose in February. Amanda and Ife were able to enjoy that morning with us at Primrose. And anytime you need a pick-me-up, you just go to Primrose and you look at our youngest learners in action, and you can't help but smile with all that's happening. So it was wonderful. And tonight we wanted to provide some further background on what we saw in action that morning, which was literacy learning at the K2 level and the K2 win period. And the Primrose teachers were also kind enough to share some samples of their materials and some student work with us that we'll pass around so you can see some of the pieces tonight as well. But I will actually kick it over to Meg and Katie to kind of reground us in the building success plan and what drives our work in this area.
So when we presented to you in the fall, I think probably that same slide was up there, and we told you about what was going to happen this year. So our work continues around the science of reading practices. And as you know, over the last 4 or 5 years, we focused heavily on the phonics and phonemic awareness sections of the science of reading. And now this year we moved into the knowledge block. So we brought on new materials at the beginning of the year. It's called Wit and Wisdom, and it's a company called Great Minds. And this is the knowledge block. So when we talk about the knowledge block, we're talking about vocabulary, we're talking about stories, we're talking about writing. And this is the second part to just complement our reading block. So, and then one of our other goals was then the WIN block. You've heard us talk about the multi-tiered system of support, giving everybody what they need when they need it. And the WIN block, we call it What I Need, is a 30 or 40-minute period each day where students go out for services if they need services outside of the room, and the students that are in the room work in small groups with their classroom teacher towards specific goals. So that can be reading or math.
So as Katie was mentioning, we base the components of our literacy instruction on the science of reading, which is decades-old research, kind of refreshed and reshared for the world to think about. And Scarborough's rope, which you see here in the image, became a main visual, showing how the elements intertwine to build skilled readers. So a large takeaway in this work and what we've been thinking about over these past 2 years is that understanding that children need both the explicit skills instruction in phonological awareness and decoding, which is the blue strands of that rope. And that needs to be paired with knowledge building for students to build background knowledge, vocabulary, language, and those are the red strands that make up the rope. And you need these to work together in order to be a proficient reader. So when we talk about programming and what you see up here, you see our general programming consists of these curriculums, and they support the different pillars of literacy. So when we began this lift of professional learning in the science of reading, as Katie was saying, there were many strengths in what we had already in place in our approaches in phonemic awareness and phonics instruction. We have the programs of Hegarty and Foundations, which support these areas and work well. Supplemental support has been infused over these past 3 years through a resource I've mentioned before called UFly. That's out of the University of Florida Institute, which has been a great resource for supplementing and providing smaller group instruction for students in the area of phonics and really targeting things. We've also this year brought on Foundation's decodable texts that they call their readables, and we actually have a couple we'll pass down so you can take a look. We had to steal them from the teachers with a promise to bring them back. So be kind to them. But you can take a look and see how the Foundation skills play out in these readable texts. And then for knowledge building, our review process last spring highlighted that need for the cross-curricular knowledge building curriculum. So this was our first year of implementing Great Minds, Wit and Wisdom. Connects right back to Scarborough's road for that need for students to build knowledge and vocabulary and syntax, and doing this through read-alouds and group discussions, both with the whole class and in small groups. And this was part of what we saw that morning when we were walking around Primrose. Wit and Wisdom also has a partner text series that's called GEODS. Enter next sample. And this bridges the students' phonics work that they're doing in Foundations, and it's decodable material that's connected to the topics that they're learning about in Wit and Wisdom. So really authentic practice. And
what is decodable material?
Decodable means that there are words in there that you would apply the phonics skills that you're learning to read them.
Got it.
So these have been a great addition to students being able to work in groups, and they can be used in a variety of ways, which has been wonderful too. Did you want to mention anything else about the use of the geodes in class?
Yeah. So when we walked into the classroom, the visitors saw that students were working in various groups doing what I need. So they were using the decodables or the readables in small group instruction. So I have been taught directly, and we walked around and we saw some Foundations work where students are being taught directly by the teacher, and you're tapping and blending, segmenting and blending sounds to make words. So how are you putting that into practice when you're reading? So they have to get practice to put it all together, and they're doing that through the readable text, through the geodes. Some students had it back at their seats. They were rereading and doing things. They had the black and white copies. And then also there were students who were reading with a grown-up, whether it was a teacher or a teaching assistant in the room, and they were practicing the skills, and the teacher was, or the teaching assistant, leading in and listening to what they were doing, helping the students through the passages. Students were reading for a variety of purposes. So although the books are the same, some of the students might be concentrating on that what I need part, is that they're concentrating on the decoding part, the fluency part. You know, am I reading smoothly? Other students were concentrating more with a greater emphasis on the comprehension and the connection to what that they're learning in class. So for each group, they may have a slightly different purpose. We also saw in the What I Need period that some of the students were taking charge of their own learning when we walked into a second grade room, that they were self-sufficient on their own based on the routines, and they were doing more of a literature circle. They were reading books at their own level with their interest and the overlap with what the students are learning. The thing of the geodes that we personally enjoy is that the geodes are written at a level that the students can use their skills, their phonics and phonemic awareness skills, to unlock the text, but it still connects to the unit that they are studying and to the information that they are building. So it's not as dry as perhaps some other readables or decodables that people may have seen or have experienced when they were younger. So that was something that was a value added. And we did appreciate in our work with the consultants from Great Minds has really been instrumental and the teachers being able to access all of this, because there's a lot of material. It was a big lift for the teachers, but when you walked into the room, all these routines in February were operating pretty seamlessly.
I can agree with that. So when you're talking about the geodes being like at a level that all the kids could read, so does that, are there different levels of geodes depending on who can handle what, or?
So it's based on what you just did in foundations. So it has material that one would expect to know after doing those foundations assessments in those foundations unit, and it gives a percentage of accuracy that you should be able to attain. For some students, the accuracy level might be higher. For other students, it might be a little bit more of a struggle. But with repeated readings, with differentiation, you can help the students access the material still. So, yeah.
The other thing that you might notice when you walk into a classroom, it might seem more like a science or social studies class. And that's really the content that Wit and Wisdom puts forth. So one of the recent units in kindergarten is called Once Upon a Farm, all about farm life. In first grade, if you really want to engage first graders, you need to talk to them about creature features, which is their current unit. And in second grade, right now, they are studying the American West. So truly content areas that they are diving deeply into, learning vocabulary that they have never learned before, and learning different aspects of science and social studies that they have never learned before. And frankly, that some of us have never learned before, because there's lots of information. Do you want to talk about the framing questions?
Yeah, so each particular unit has like an essential question or a question that kind of guides the conversation, first at a higher level, and then as you're going through the lessons, there are specific questions for the lessons or for the craft, the things that you're working on. So for instance, in kindergarten, they were reading fiction and nonfiction stories about farm. So the question was, what makes a good story? As they're reading the information, they're analyzing what makes this a good story. They talk about it with each other. So we have the listening, we have speaking, standards all at work, and then also we'll talk about the writing. In first grade, what can I discover about animals' unique features? So already we're getting into that each animal has something unique, so an interesting word to know. And then also, as you build, they'll touch back on it in the later years. These are animal adaptations. How do the animals meet their needs? How do they protect themselves? And the students really enjoyed that piece, that these animals will do certain things or have certain features in order to protect themselves from predators. And they've all kind of understood these are not animals I'm going to see in real life day to day. And they're just doing it to protect themselves. They're not doing it to be mean. And then in second grade, they are all about what was going on in the West in the 1800s. So what was life like in the West for early Americans? They talk first about the Native Americans, then the settlers who went out west. And the amount of work that goes into the real thinking skills when we go on to Scarborough's rope, literacy knowledge, making sense of it. What is my background knowledge? So in one of the folders, you'll see that the students in the writing standards had to answer a prompt, and the question was about the hardships that the settlers encountered in their journey west. So some children, from reading, they gathered information. They were able to talk about, how dangerous it was, and the cliffs, the ravines, the rivers, the elements that of nature that they came across. And then other students made the connection to their own lives, knowing that you were going to pack up your wagon, you were going to say goodbye to your grandparents who were going to remain in the East in a time pre-cell phones, pre-emails, that mail across the United States was not reliable and that you would probably never see them again. And a lot of students recognize that as a hardship too. So that brings their reading and their thinking, their speaking, their listening to a whole different level. It's also, personally I enjoy, because this was my generation, is that it has reignited a passion for Little House on the Prairie. And the students are loving it. They're like, oh my gosh, every week is so hard. And it was when you see them bringing water in, and that's the water that you had to wash up with. And
They had to walk to school.
yeah, and you had to walk to school after you helped take care of the animals in the barn. So it connects also to what the students would also prior their learning would be on the farm from kindergarten. Also, another piece is, as the settlers are heading west, they do head west on the Oregon Trail, which a lot of parents remembered that computer game fondly. So the students did some research, and they brought the computer, their tablets home, and they were saying, Mom or Dad, did you play the Oregon Trail? And parents are like, oh my gosh, did I? It was fantastic. And so it's a lot of great conversation around the dinner table at night, which also deepens the knowledge and the love of learning. So we couldn't be more pleased.
Yes, I've enjoyed my weekly conversations with my daughter talking about lizards with detachable heads in the first grade unit. It's been very fun. And then finally, we were able to see a glimpse into the What I Need block, as the ladies were mentioning. There's different groupings and materials used for students during this period of time. We saw some students had an ELA focus or a reading focus. Others had a math focus during this time. And the teachers are so skilled at knowing what their students' needs are and the progress that their students need to make, and using different materials in order to reach those needs, including things like IXL supplemental practice. There's the Foundations Fun Hub, which has some great games and activities on it. Supplemental activities of the math curriculum, and then also the geodes and the Foundations decodable material. They're using these things as well as providing the direct instruction to small groups and rotating based on what kids need. So like I said, some of the practice is independent with these materials, or children are working in small groups, and that's what we saw that morning. During the visit, we saw that this period of time really runs like a well-oiled machine during the WIN period. It's amazing what 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds are doing during this time. Our teachers put really clear routines into place. We also have amazing teaching assistants and providers during this time that are also working with small groups of students, so the time is spent as productively as possible.
I was going to say also the writing component is a strong one too. And there's really no end to what our staff can do, will do to reach a child. So they, on the structure that they give them, putting the Foundations chart on the front of a child's writing folder for wit and wisdom time, so when it comes time to write, the child can go back to something at their desk personally to tap out and stretch out the sounds. Some of the teachers have organized their things into folders for wit and wisdom. The older children have used binders too.
And you see all the scaffolding that is necessary for students to become good writers. So you see that they're starting at the sentence level, and they're getting their ideas in a graphic organizer, and then they're building that into a paragraph, and then they're illustrating their work. So there's a real purpose and sequence to showing what they know and building that information. And it's really all coming from their reading.
And you'll see in there too, like the teachers have also found ways to make it fun. So there are read-alouds that they are listening to, there's conversations they're having with adults and with peers, but then they do things to also bring the learning to life. So for instance, you saw the seahorses in one of the folders that a teacher made into almost like a stained glass art project. There's connection also to their science about, objects that are translucent versus transparent. And so these are all done by the hard work and the craft and the love and the art of our teachers trying to find the inroads too. So that has really brought the learning to life for them. In the kindergarten one, you see a podcast. Some of the teachers took the podcast, loaded them onto Seesaw so that your parents could watch it at home. They can see your neighbor, your best friend. And then some teachers had a QR code so that when you're walking past in the hallway, you can scan the QR code, listen to the kindergarten podcast about the animals on the farm. And that's the artistry and the wonder that is a Primrose teacher. It's a lot of hard work to get to know these materials, how to use them properly, and then also how to make it fun and engaging for all of the children. And I think you saw also a first grade book about the animals that the class put together. And
They're features.
and you
Creature
can
features.
check it out of the classroom library and you can read it and take it home. It's really been just fantastic what our staff has been able to accomplish.
So which cohort would have like started this in kindergarten now? They'll have like this experience right from the beginning.
The current.
That's the
kindergarten.
current one, right?
So everybody launched at the same time.
Okay.
And they all engaged in, we call it Unit 0, which was the routines of wit and which were the routines of wit and wisdom. And then for each grade level, there's 4 content area units.
And then as the children experience it, the routines will get easier. So they'll know, like when you're acting something out, the teacher will say, okay, we're going to do a tableau. That's the term. We're going to go walk around the room and find somebody to talk to. The term is you're going to mix and mingle. You're going to use your buttons and boxes. You know, what's the main idea, what are the details underneath? So those are all the procedures that Wit and Wisdom uses to help facilitate learning, engagement, conversation.
So what have we learned, like either observed and or been able to measure so far in this first year? And what kind of experiences? I don't know how much of it's anecdotal and how much we've actually been able to measure, and then also what we expect to see going forward.
Well, I feel like you're skipping ahead to the
I probably am, so.
to the end of year report and the success report, but so far in the mid-year we were very pleased with some of the scores that we saw for the students. You know, when we look at hard numbers, we also look at the excitement that we're hearing and seeing from some of our students as they're learning about things that they never did before. In Module 1 of first grade, it was how do books change lives? And that's a deep conversation. If we revisited it now, you know, students might have a different answer about how these books have changed their lives and how they're special to them. And, you know, that's something you can't really put a number on, but you know it when you hear it and you see it.
And I think when you see the samples coming around, you'll see the focus of the writing, the amount of detail based on text at this very young age. And I think that type of both explicit instruction and supporting students in doing that and allowing them to work in these small groups to think through that, process it, and apply it in writing is a different kind of focus and feel than perhaps we had seen in prior years. And as Meg was saying, topics like theme and coming up with a theme of a text at even the kindergarten level is going to pay off in dividends as they get older. And the types of questions and tasks that they're going to be faced with once they hit 3rd, 4th, 5th grade and beyond. It also sets them up well for the inquiry-based learning they're going to have to do throughout the grade levels here. So being able to see that type of focus in their response, the use of vocabulary improve, both in conversation and in writing, are all elements that we're starting to see rise up. And the fruits of everyone's efforts and our teachers working so hard to implement this well this first year.
And this being the first year, the students are becoming familiar with the common language, with the process and the procedure. So as the kindergartners move up to the first grade to the 2nd grade, and then on into SIS, it's only going to get better and the learning will move forward.
The structure of the writing and the explicit teaching of like parts of speech and things of that nature come embedded within the program. So like that's part of the deep dives where you're looking at the craft and you're looking at the parts of speech and how to put the words together to make a sophisticated sentence. So that's something that perhaps maybe we haven't seen embedded the way that it is in Wit and Wisdom. So that is also a value added.
I think there's a lot of value with this kind of integrated approach to learning, this taking these subject areas and dealing with them from different kind of disciplinary perspectives. Is there anything that you've seen so far? I know it's the mid-year, Meg, so don't cut me off there. I know we're not at the final kind of evaluation of how this year has been, but so far, have you seen anything that you would have done differently or changed or said, ooh, that part, we might have been better off if we hadn't done that? Any regrets?
I think it's something new, and I think, I don't think there's any regrets, but I think there's giving teachers time, giving them the time they need, and the teachers themselves giving them a little grace for all the hard work that is taking place, because there's a lot of deep learning. And, we have, with Liz's help, we have found the right consultants to help us work through these units. And to really take the time and enjoy these units. We're looking for connections in terms of our science curriculum and our social studies curriculum and where we can make those overlaps. And then continually going back to the New York State standards, which are reading, writing, listening, and speaking, which are all embedded in this program. So if anything, I think we've experienced energy and engagement. And it will be interesting at the end I think the units are only getting better.
Yeah, it was hard in the beginning, and it's tricky. Like, we had some training in the beginning, and then the teachers were giving it a go, and then more training came. And that was beneficial because you kind of knew then what the trainer was talking about because you experienced it firsthand. So I thought that was very valuable, and she's coming back again to then start with them and say, okay, let's go back to the beginning. What did you learn? How are we going to try this a little differently? Because the beginning, it was hard. It was a lot of pieces to learn, a lot of pieces to manage with children who had never learned in that manner. People struggled with the time on the rug and with the pacing. How many days am I going back to this? All of that was very challenging. And when we met with our consultants, they were like, no, that is hard. That is the reality of it. But you have to do it this way in order to understand it.
It's the process. Right?
Yeah.
It's a process.
It's trusting that process.
Yeah, it's a learning process, not just of what you're learning, but the process of learning and how children integrate that information and take it on board and learn from that. The materials that you've circulated here, done by the children, is quite impressive. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience in elementary schools. It's been a long time, but I will say the quality of that work that was in those folders that those children have done, I think, is quite impressive for children at that age to be developing that kind of work product. So whether it's those kids or whether it's that material you've given us or whether it's the entire system with the teachers and this new system of approaching this material, it's quite impressive.
And the way that they think about reading, where it takes them the I wonder questions, it allows you to get deeper, get to next level. And we're talking kindergarten through second, and then that's something that'll just grow, and what an important foundational skill for a lifetime.
And we've had staff members then take some of the things, the elements that they have enjoyed and seen work in Wit and Wisdom, and try and create a transference. So as they're doing science, they're pre-teaching the vocabulary, they're pairing it with a visual as they do in Wit and Wisdom. They're using the same look, and they're using some of the same procedures. So like first you notice and wonder about what you're looking at. All right, now let's do a gallery walk of what everybody's science experiment looks like now that it's done. So these are all protocols and procedures that came from Wit and Wisdom that they're now using in science or in social studies. So the crossover and the experience ensures that September might be a little easier for the next grade level.
I know when I was there, we talked about a little bit about how this is really improved, like having that knowledge block when kids are maybe a struggling reader, like how much that's improved. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. As the teacher does the read aloud and shares the text, then there are times that they stop and they do a pair share. This is text that I'm not expected to decode, and if I'm somebody who is a reluctant reader, who struggles with that part of Scarborough's reading rope, I am now listening and comprehending and able to verbalize. And my schema, my background knowledge, my curiosity, none of that's going to hold me back from the conversation and from accessing the text. So that has been simply incredible. Because just because I have struggled with reading doesn't mean that there's anything that I can't get intellectually as I'm conversing with a peer and listening. It creates a different entry point for that student, and they're part of the whole class.
And it's that combined with where their needs are in their phonics skills. That's why you have two sides of the rope that have to intertwine to make those skilled readers. Because yes, the phonics skills that you may be working to develop, my skills might be different than Meg's right now, but being able to build that shared common vocabulary and experience around text, and now we have similar background knowledge to connect to, once that intertwines with those decoding skills, that gives you the effective end result. So being able to have children together learning with each other and creating that shared common experience, discussion, working to help each other to respond, is something that any child can access. And one thing we started to highlight too is that it's not just texts that are used in these whole group discussions. There's video clips, there's artwork, there's music samples, along with read alouds. And that's exciting for kids, right? You want to talk about music. You want to take a look at a piece of artwork. We also have heard kudos from our art teachers of, oh, they come in and they know point of view and a focal point in the artwork. So it's giving children of all different levels and abilities a chance to be together, learning together, and building that content knowledge together, which has been a big bonus.
And also, some of the text, it's nice, it's balanced, it's reflective. Like there's a piece about Jane Goodall. It fell right before Women's History Month for our first graders. If you look in also one of the first grade readables, the main character uses a wheelchair. So again, that concept of that mirror and window and sliding door of the people you're going to encounter in the world and myself being reflected in the text.
And the writing, I mean, just reading through it, like being passed around, like very impressive.
That was a huge difference, though, because we're used to writing narrative in the beginning of the year, and we didn't do that this year.
Used to writing about, the way they formerly conducted their writing was all about them. And now it's really all about the information in these books and then applying it to real life. So a really solid integration.
I'll be curious to see how that travels through as they get older and applying it to like different grades levels and testing and things like that and papers that they have to write.
Yeah.
And the first grade children still saw themselves as authors. When we think about how I used to create a little book about my journey to Disney or whatever in the narrative unit, those first graders who wrote about the animals and they created an anthology, they're authors, and they see themselves in that way too.
It's amazing. Anybody else have any?
It was a very fun visit, nice morning.
I will say I learned something about seahorses' eyes just in passing through. So whoever that author was, well done. Can see the food all around them.
Yes.
Their eyes, really amazing.
Thank you.
And the illustrations were beautiful too.
Yeah.
And the penmanship. I got
Penmanship.
I got
was-
C's.
Yeah, the penmanship
Impressive.
was really something.
It reflects text features, which you need to know to be a reader of informational text. Yeah.
But I have to say, it's just amazing what you guys have done in the past couple of years with the professional development and working with PLC Associates and bringing on Wit and Wisdom and this heavy, I know it was a heavy lift and you guys had to decide on the curriculum, but to see it come and to see it in person in the classrooms and to see, we got to see all different, as you said, all different levels that day, all different points of where they were in the lessons as we walked through the hallways and into the different classrooms. And to see how far ahead you guys are of when are we required to have this all done by the state? September. So I feel like we're really there. You guys did an amazing job. So,
It's the hours and hours and hours that the teachers sit at home, reading the manuals, thinking about it, calling each other, talking about it at grade level meetings. They have really done a lot of work.
There's a lot more to it than a 12-page book with
Absolutely.
pictures in it, right? There's a lot more involved behind getting the child to read and understand what's in this book. It's quite impressive. I remember in the halls in Primrose when the boxes and boxes of those new materials were like, what in the heck is that? It's all the new reading materials, and there is just a ton of background stuff, right? It's quite impressive.
And I was glad that you saw the teaching assistants in the room too, because the former board president asked when we talked about the What I Need period way back when, he said, and how is that going to work in kindergarten and first grade? And you saw it. It works because our staff is there.
Yep.
That the teacher's working, the teaching assistant, the aides are working, everyone is supporting the children.
and you couldn't tell which classrooms were co-teach, which classrooms were 12-1-1, like you couldn't tell any of that. You know, they were all just doing what they needed to do, and the level of engagement on these kids, it was amazing. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us back to Chris's favorite topic, the capital project update.
It's an exciting topic, actually. So tonight we are here to present on the upcoming 2025 bond presentation that we're going to be putting out to the voters for to vote on in May, along with the annual budget. So tonight we do have Mike Lantier from H2M and John Hansen from Triton Construction. Mike and John will just give a little brief introduction of themselves, but if you may recall, H2M was appointed as our architects for this project back in the fall, and same with Triton Construction to provide construction management services for us during this project. So I'll just turn it over to them and let them take it away.
Thanks, Chris. That was a great presentation. We'll do our best to follow it up. My name is Michael Lantier. I'm an engineer with H2M Architects and Engineers. I have essentially dedicated my career working with K through 12 and higher education clients through all phases of construction, from planning all the way through project completion. And I have worked alongside the district for 8 years at this point, from safety and security bond, and then through the preparation through this project and a number of other projects along the way. And I'm here with John Hansen, if you want to make a quick introduction.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Hansen with Triton Construction, working on this project as a pre-construction manager. Been in the district for about 8 years now. Our firm has been in the district for over 15. Specialize in the K through 12 industry as well. We are obviously helping H2M and the school district out with reviewing the upcoming proposition to the voters in May, and analyzing some of the numbers and scope of work that will be included in that proposition.
So we're currently in a very important part of this this process that has been really a number of years long. I'm just going to give a quick background to where we are today. So, you know, this process is really ongoing throughout the history of a school district. When you own this many buildings, there's so many facilities upgrades that are required throughout the decades, just as your community changes, as your buildings age, as technology changes. But really, the thought process behind this bond referendum and this comprehensive plan process started about 2019 when we did a building condition survey, which really looks at every part of your buildings and comes up with a number of different items. Some of them are life safety items, some of them are code compliant issues, some of them are almost like wish list items that the school district may be able to benefit from, and a long list of items is put together and presented to the district, and it gives an overall condition of the buildings. And I will say, having walked every space in every building, I'm very happy to report that your buildings are in incredible shape. It really is a testament to Chris McCartney as the facilities director, and the effort that's been put in throughout the years. Unfortunately, just looking at the scale, which we'll go to in a second, there's items that typically can't be completed during a yearly maintenance budget. And at some point, you do need to invest in a very large maintenance project and other capital infrastructure project. So as we went through this process with the building condition survey, we met with many different committees throughout the district, administration, the board, different members of the faculty. And we really put things into to buckets, really, with interior, exterior site, your water systems, HVAC, and electrical systems, to be able to summarize them. We also looked at the future needs of the school district. Is our student population growing? Are our athletic fields aging? Is our technology still up to current trends? Is there anything else that we would like to include that we have the needs for? And then we prioritize and we budget. And right now, we're in the financing part of the project, and we're in the presentation portion of the project. It's our goal to clearly communicate what this project is going to cost and what's included in this project as we move forward. Next slide, please, Chris. So I include this slide because it really gives a good snapshot overall across the district. And as you can see, a number of your buildings are of age. The middle school is approaching 90 years at this point from the original construction date. What you'll see from a number of the items, though, like Primrose Elementary School, 1955 was original construction. 1996 there was a large construction upgrade. Again in 2000. So you have these windows about every 20 years where you look to take on a major portion of a major project to complete a lot of these items that are just too large to be able to complete on an annual maintenance budget item. I also have square footages. I know it's a little bit hard. We include square footages on here just to really give scale. An average house is somewhere between 1,500 to 2,500 square feet. We're talking about 50 times that size in each building alone. The high school is about 217,000 square feet, to give you a scale. Your elementary school is about 89,000 square feet. So now moving on to the project, the next slide really breaks down the costs of everything that we're looking to complete within the next few years, and we talk about the overall budget. So when we presented to the board in January of 2024, we were about $106 million. That was all of the items that we compiled that we felt like should be considered for a future project. We were then tasked to really prioritize and meet with different committees to really bring that number down. Our ultimate goal was to create a tax-neutral proposition for the community to ultimately vote on, which will be in May. And out of that $63.9 million worth of work, about $62 million of that would be from a proposed bond, and about $1.8 million of that would be funded from existing capital reserves. Again, we talk about tax neutral. We do want to be clear that tax neutral is not associated with your yearly taxes. There are taxes that are just associated with general increases for either inflation, the cost of just goods and services increasing. That's separate from where we are with this bond project, and I'll pass it back over to Chris to just talk about the finances.
Yep, so just when Mike just mentioned tax neutral, what we're talking about is the debt portion that the district is responsible for some of the borrowings that they've had over the years. So this slide is just showing you where we currently stand. That blue bar is what our existing local share is. And when I say local share, I mean what our debt service payments are for the money that we borrowed, minus any building aid that we received for those projects that we borrowed those funds for. So you can see the orange bar is the pro forma local share, and that meaning the debt that we're looking to bring on with this new project. So the idea is to keep that local share for the taxpayers consistent with that green bar that's going across. So where we currently are today, we want to maintain that with the new debt coming on. So even though the project that we have coming on, or we're going to ask the voters to approve, is about $64 million, which is a little bit more than the debt that's falling off, it's because we're able to receive building aid on the project that we're going to do in the future, where we're not receiving building aid on the current debt that's going to be falling off. It's not the easiest thing to try to explain, and but again, I think the chart is just showing you we're not looking to increase the amount of debt that the district has, or the amount of the local share that the taxpayers are responsible for. We're trying to maintain that same local share, so your debt minus your building aid, because with this new project, we will get close to, as of right now, it's about 39% building aid. So for every dollar we're spending, the state is going to reimburse us 39 cents. And we get that over the 15 years, which is where we're going to look to structure the bond payments to coincide with that building aid that we'd be receiving from the state. So again, I know it's not the easiest thing to try to explain, but I hope we'll continue to do this throughout the different presentations that we have. And again, it's been a few years in discussions here. We knew this debt for the old projects were going to be falling off. So we started planning, many years ago to make sure we're in a good position to then start borrowing the funds where there's no gaps in the amount of debt that we have, because it also the debt payments also factor into our tax cap calculation as well. So we don't want to have those large swings if we happen to have a year that we didn't replace the debt that was falling off, where it just throws your tax cap out of whack.
Because of that, it would affect how much money we can raise from the taxpayers.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
And what you might have noted in the previous slide that had the building ages, this is a fairly normal process. As debt falls off, you do want to take on new debt to fill that in, because it affects your school district building aid. If you have too much surplus, it can affect your tax, your borrowing rating as a school district as well. And a way to offset that is to continually invest in your buildings and do these capital infrastructure improvement projects. So moving on to the next few slides, this is really a high-level scope of work. This is not a bond that's trying to do a very large, purposeful project. We're not trying to do a very large building addition or a new athletic complex. Most of the work that we are including are upgrades that are recommended for infrastructure purposes. Full transparency, this slide was supposed to have some of the items darker that are more common. You're going to see commonalities throughout all of the schools. We're going to make that a little bit clearer. There are a couple one-off projects that we will focus on that are very, very exciting. And while all of these projects do affect the students and staff, they may not be as forward or really on public display as some of the items that we'll touch on as well. So large costs of this bond are included are your drainage, your roofing, retaining walls, HVAC, flooring, asphalt pavement across the district is a very large item. I know it's not very exciting, but there comes a time where you do have to put a large infrastructure improvement project together to take care of some of these large scale items. Just touching on some highlights over at Primrose that we're really exciting about that are one-offs. The entrance canopy has been a headache for a number of years for a number of reasons, so we're looking to upgrade that front entrance. Some beautiful state-of-the-art playgrounds we're including in there as well. Next, I'll go to the intermediate school. So similarly, you'll see a number of the same items: building weatherization, asphalt, drainage work, some retaining walls. What we're including over at the intermediate school, which are exciting, again, playground upgrades, some exterior learning space upgrades. And what we are including in every school, which we'll get to in a little bit more detail, is an item on a per classroom basis. As we walk through the schools, different items change. Let's take flooring, for example. When we walk through and we do our inventory, things are inherently going to change. There's rooms that are upgraded by the district. There are other rooms that come into further disrepair. So what we're including is basically an allowance on a per classroom basis based upon the highest needs at the time as we complete these projects. Move on to the middle school quickly. So again, similarly, some exciting things that we'll touch on over at the middle school. We are doing a large turf area, an outside play area at the middle school. And we'll touch on, we put a nice rendering together to propose that one. Again, classroom upgrades. We'll move on to the high school. Some other exciting things are track replacement, some locker room upgrades. Your rear entrance canopy to the upper gym is in need of an upgrade. And then we're looking to do sports lighting and upgrading your press box as part of this project as well. Transportation behind the high school, there is actually your transportation area. Again, this is similar items, your drainage, asphalt. We're looking to increase the surveillance down there to tie it into your existing system that's district-wide as well. So we do have some photos, and this presentation will be shared online. So if you wanted to touch on them, you can. This is really a very high level because there's only so many pictures of asphalt that you can show or flooring that needs to be replaced. But basically, the left side is showing you some of your older roofs that are in need of replacement. The middle and the right are really your building weatherization. So that's window upgrades. That's door upgrades. That's repointing. That's why you'll see brickwork, and there is a lot of brickwork across the district. Your repointing basically is finishing the grout. The grout becomes permeable for water over the years, so you actually come through and you do have to fix it to keep your buildings watertight. This is some of your site work: concrete, asphalt. Again, I could show a ton of pictures if you drive around, or if you're part of the building tours in person. You'll see some of these items as well. But this is really just showing your retaining walls and your stairs that are due for replacement.
And I do just want to remind you what Mike said earlier, that our buildings are in good shape despite the pictures that we're pointing out every single thing that is wrong with them or that we're looking to upgrade with this project.
And we're not rerouting any of the parking areas or
No.
traffic. This
Nope.
is maintenance of what we have.
Yes.
This slide is showing some of the exterior work, your entrance upgrades, again, some more concrete. One of the middle slides is showing that rear entrance to the gym, the high school, the upper gym, your playgrounds. The bottom two on the right are we'll get to a rendering in a second, but that's the field over at the middle school that's heavily used right now. It's really not much more than a grass area with a small gaga pit and a backstop that has some drainage issues, has some dirt issues, grass growth issues. So we'll touch on that one again in a minute. This is some of your interior work. Again, electrical work, like Chris mentioned, everything is safe. Any items that did come up as life safety issues were immediately handled with the district throughout this process. But you can see the electrical panels are reaching 50 years at this point in a number of cases. Unfortunately, replacement parts are either scarce, non-existent, or crazy expensive, so it makes sense to be proactive to replace these components. Same thing with the fire alarm systems, and then same thing with the bathrooms. They're fully functional. However, if you've been in them, there are some issues with the bathrooms. Again, just more flooring, ceilings, and then there are a number of various additional items included: unit ventilator replacements, some different facade upgrades that are included. There's some ceilings, some lighting, some ceramic tile. Thank you, Chris. So these are getting onto the renderings. This is, some of the really exciting line items that we wanted to include. So we're showing the new turf area. That's the back of the middle school, kind of looking back towards the middle school where the Gaga pit is. That's the top left picture. The thought here is to really a general, nice, large turf area for general play. And we can include some items. Right now we're just showing badminton. We're showing some soccer going on, some ping pong, and these items will be further discussed throughout a design process. The bottom left is just showing the general orientation, working with the existing grade. The top right and the bottom right are showing some new playgrounds, which would be installed on new turf surfaces as well.
And turf surfaces, meaning artificial turf.
Artificial turf, thank you, yes. So as part of the project over at the middle school, we're including upgrading 3 of the existing tech labs. Right now, the middle school utilizes 2 that are really STEM areas and a third that is considered a maker space. And really where we went with this project, these spaces kind of evolved more because the technology came into place, as the technology came into place, they were kind of thrown into the different classes where they thought they would belong. But there was never really a holistic approach because the technology was constantly changing. But we're at a point now where, there is some dedicated programs in place, but the spaces really should match what these programs look like. So what we're including part of this is dedicated spaces that are functional, that are collaborative. We're showing some general storage to display as well as to secure some of the technical equipment, and then again just some dedicated spaces for some of the workflow, bringing collaborative casework and furniture and workspaces into these areas.
I know these are just conceptual drawings. Are those the outlets that are hanging from the ceiling in the tech labs?
So they are. Yep.
Extension
We're showing
cords.
some pull cables.
I know there's some issues sometimes in the high school with how those ended up going in, so it's just something to think about when we go through the process.
So this is a rendering just to give an example of that $25,000 per classroom that we've included. And we want it to be clear that the funding is not in place to do all of this work in a single classroom, but depending on the most needs of the classroom, we're going to spend about $25,000 to accomplish either new casework. Casework is basically built-in furniture into a room, furniture that's not movable. So we've included potentially casework, or new furniture, or new flooring, or just brightening of the spaces through painting and artwork, or potentially new ceilings. Again, that's based on need. And on the right, we have a list of some of these upgrades and areas that have or components that are in most need. You would also include in a classroom upgrade, potentially like a unit ventilator replacement. There are rooms that are absolutely slated for flooring, so those would have flooring, and then an additional $25,000 for that room. So this is just some anticipated schedules. The check boxes in the middle really are showing what we've completed to date and really where we are. We're on that April 8th board. This is the first public board presentation, and then we're going to have some public tours after that. The first public tour is scheduled for April 23rd, and this is going to be a walkthrough of the two buildings. So you can get a feel if anyone's interested, then they can come out and walk the buildings with us to see what some of these items are that will be included. There'll be another public tour on May 13th. There'll be another public bond presentation on May 6th, and then the public vote will occur on May 20th, and that's at the middle school between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. The potential construction schedule, basically once the bond is approved in May, the design would start with my team with the assistance of Triton as well. We then submit to the state for actual construction permitting, and that's anticipated towards the end of this year with approval sometimes late spring of next year, with construction starting for the summer of next year, and the construction would continue through at least the following summer as well.
For the building tours, April 23rd is our first one at the middle school and high school, as Mike said. The flyer did go out through Parents Square for people to hopefully get on there and register, just so we have a general idea of how many people we can expect to it. Flyer for the May 13th walkthrough at the high school in Primrose will be coming out shortly.
I have a question. First of all, thank you, Chris, Michael, and John, for an excellent presentation. I wanted to ask you a question about procurement, because that'll be in about a year from now. And how are you going to mitigate material costs, inflation, and tariffs? Because I know that's going to be a big question from our taxpayers.
So it's a great question, and it's a question that we are seeing because there are a lot of unknowns, unfortunately, where we are right now. And it's kind of it's a multifaceted approach, really. Part of it is inherent to the business that we're in. We're tracking any changes that we're seeing in construction materials, and as they do, we adjust our available budgets. We talk to Chris to let him know if there's any concerns that we have coming up, and then ultimately we end up having to tailor the construction documents to really adhere to what we've got an approval from the community to complete. So an example is flooring. We have an allotted value for flooring. We have a budget for flooring. That's the budget that we're going to end up using for flooring. Unfortunately, if the numbers go up, we end up having to scale down potentially some of that work to do as much as we can with the funding that we have approved. The way that we really get as close as we can to make sure we're doing as much work as we possibly can with the approved money is through different bidding techniques, where we get pricing on a number of different areas to make sure that we can select the most appropriate scope of work. With the numbers that we have coming in from regularly bidding similar projects, we keep track of really the markets to see if there are major fluctuations, so we can adjust accordingly.
And
Thank
Mike, you also put in escalator and contingencies.
So, yep, that's a great point too. We do include it in the overall project budget. There is a contingency for escalation. There's a contingency for unknowns during the design process, as well as during the construction process.
So a lot of the work gets done during the school year. How disruptive is that to the students?
So we'll select if it's a project that we know is going to be a highly disruptive project. We would really plan to do that project over one of the summers, and then like a fire alarm is a great example. That's a project that you typically can do after hours. So they come in, they do their work, and then we have a crew that follows them through to make sure they're cleaned up. So some work would happen after hours. It's typically minimal disturbance. I don't think we see much concerns with large scale disturbances of having to move students around to either different schools or having to move faculty around. We're not seeing that on this project.
So like flooring, when you're doing like the work, the $25,000 per classroom, let's say, that kind of work, I'm assuming most of that would have to be done then over the summer.
Most of that work would be done during the summer. Yeah.
In the high school, when you have the scope of work, I think it's on at least our draft capital projects improvement page, about work to the auditorium. I don't see it in this particular one. Is that getting taken?
I'd have to double check. I don't have, there's a lot of large documents with a lot of scope of work. I'd have to check. I know that was on there. I'm not sure if we remove that one.
I think it would just be
Still
nice to make
on
sure
there.
it gets
Yep.
on.
And we'll,
yeah.
for the next presentation, we'll update that a little bit, so it'll be
I don't
there.
want to make it look like we're just doing
Yes.
like gym and.
But yeah, auditorium upgrade is included in there.
Great.
And then just this last slide, as Amanda just talked about the draft capital project website, but it is live now, so you can go to the Somers webpage, and it'll be one of the top banners next to either in between home and Board of Education. It'll just say capital project. So you can check out, and we'll post the presentation there and any other documents that we need to get up there. And then if anyone has any questions related for the capital project, they can email this capitalproject@somerschools.org email address, and those will come to me, and then we'll look to address them. And at some point, depending on the number of questions, might put a Q&A up on the website. Just, if people are asking the same questions, we'll get the information out there. So please feel free to email me with any questions.
And keep coming to us if there's questions, whether we have to route them through Chris or whoever, see us in a grocery store, whatever the case may be. This is important, and I know it's going to be a lot. And if anyone can make the meetings for the tours of the buildings, I know we're excited to do that. I'm definitely going to be at both of them. I think it's important to really see the work that's going to be done and that we're investing in. So.
Yeah, I think that those are great. It's helpful just to see the photos, but seeing it in person really brings the need home.
And I know I've talked to Chris McCartney about doing potentially videos if we can't have everyone, depending on how the turnout is for the tours. And we could always pop those on the website potentially.
Yep, we want to get as much information as we can out there so everyone knows what they're voting on in May.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Okay, this brings us to our personnel consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby approves the attached personnel agenda.
So moved. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? All right. Business consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby approves the attached business agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Chris, anything to add for this?
There's only a couple items on there. We're just disposing of a bunch of obsolete equipment, but we will look to sell or auction off those some of that equipment on Auctions International website. So after this, we'll try to get that up there probably this week.
If someone wants a piece of
Someone wants
Somers
a
Auctions
piece
International.
of some of
Anyone
this,
needs
yeah.
a 3-door freezer, there will be one.
It'll be on there. Yeah. And then there's a
Golf carts.
yeah.
Golf
Golf
carts.
cart. Oh, well, it sounds like they're not very,
Some of the items are not in great condition, so. But we're gonna try to salvage whatever money we can for them. And then there's a couple budget transfers on there for some tuition costs for some out-of-district students that were needed during the course of the year.
okay. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Okay, and this brings us to our second public comment section of the evening. This is for general school topics that were not on the agenda this evening. Does anyone have any public comment? Okay. So all speakers must properly identify themselves, a maximum of 30-minute period limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No district employee or student may be commented upon or identified by name or situation. Questions asked by the public will be referred to the appropriate staff member for reply at a later time or date. Questions requiring investigations will be referred to the superintendent for consideration and later response. All written statements shall be given to the district clerk.
Hello, my name is Edith Baboni, and I have a daughter here in the high school. She plays volleyball in the varsity team, and sadly we just found out that Coach Pittman resigned. He didn't tell me why. He didn't tell us why. However, it's something that the board decided to do, which I'm still not in the clear. I just want to say he's a man with integrity, and he could not get behind the board's decision, which I still don't know what it is. But the volleyball team and Somers Volleyball is what it is because of him. And he put his heart and blood and sweat into this team. And I don't know if why this is happening. We just want him staying. And I would like you to, I don't know what it could be done, but we want him here. That's all. Thank you.
Corey Mosta, mom of 2 kids in middle school and high school. And following up on Edith's comments, I'd like to thank the board so much for their commitment to joining the administration, teachers, staff, and community in working to give our kids the best education that we can, not only in academics, but also athletics, extracurriculars, and life skills. So thank you. I think many of us are here tonight because we were shocked to hear about the resignation of our valued coach, supposedly due to an administrative decision. We have no details about that, but I'd like to encourage the district to look into it further. We acknowledge that smart, well-intentioned people with similar goals can and will disagree. However, the district has put considerable resources into teaching our kids the IB curriculum values right behind you that include being inquirers, communicators, and thinkers. And as part of that growth mindset, we hope to teach our children to embrace this recent disagreement as a challenge and allow that adults make mistakes and those can be remedied and minds changed if we have good discourse and discussion about it. I would respectfully request that you review whatever decision this was that led to the resignation of this respected employee and work towards a resolution that's good for the community. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Okay. So we'll move on to final board comments.
Hi. I was touched by what you just said, by the way. And also, I wanted to thank the ladies for their presentation on great minds and decoding, and how that incorporates science and social studies, music and art. It was so exciting. And I have to say, I was getting a little weepy looking at those images and the writing, you know, missing my kids, and it was like a little it was very nice. Let's see, I wanted to congratulate the drama club on Mean Girls, and Tina Fey offering a video, and the fundraiser going on for her signed posters. Also want to congratulate the boys and girls lacrosse teams for their wins over the past week. And I wanted to thank H2M for their presentation. It was magnificent. And last thing I wanted to mention to the community is there's a free seminar tomorrow night called A No to Prevent, and it's sponsored by Partners in Prevention, and our own Kathy Cucciarella will be one of the panelists, and it's about empowering families when they have students and family members with mental health and substance abuse issues. It's called a co-disorder. So it's free to the public if anyone's interested. Thank you.
Again, thanks for the Primrose reading. It's always good to go on a Primrose and sort of, you know, it's just the happier place on the campuses. You know, again, great Mean Girls play. Your daughters got to go see it last weekend, and you know, the Capitol project this year is not as fun as exciting as the last one with new fields and everything, but you know, stuff that needs to be done around the area. But that's all I got. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. And I want to thank members of the community for coming out this evening and making your voices heard. It's always important for us to hear issues that, in this case, the volleyball team and volleyball parents and volleyball players. It's great seeing you all here today. H2M Triton, Chris McCarthy, Chris Placagna, thank you very much for the leadership on the bond project. As Dom says, it's not always the most exciting stuff, but it's stuff that needs to be done. I think anyone who is a property owner knows you've got to maintain your property, or the value of it's going to decrease. It's not going to become usable if it's not taken care of. Mean Girls, family went to see that. We also enjoyed that very much, and hopefully as we move into the spring, and I put that in quotes, the weather will cooperate and we'll be able to get out and enjoy some nice weather and really take advantage of that, and the sports teams that are all out on the fields for the spring.
Yeah, I love the Primrose presentation always. I think we all do. But it was really fascinating, and it's such great value to see these things that we talk about, that you really dive into, and that as a community we invest in for our children, and we know it's a lot of work, but when you see this and you see it in practice and you start to understand the advantages and what's going to come out of it, it's something that gets really exciting. And those are the things I always love being on the board when we get to see that, and these are the things I come away and I'm just so excited. They give me goosebumps always. And so thank you for all of that. Capital improvements. This is an important part of our district, having things in good condition, that work, that last, that are not hazards. I think the community has always, I think, supported that and known that that's important for learning, for the whole community to have quality infrastructure. And it does get exciting. I see some of those renderings, the maker space, the tech space, tech labs, if we can accomplish any of those, the improvements to the learning spaces, the classrooms, that stuff is exciting. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we can get as much of that done as possible. Obviously, community, if you have questions about what it's all about the numbers, I know, I'll send you to Chris. And I know a lot of you are here. I had a couple speakers speak about it. I'm not going to be coy. Yes, we've seen some communications. I don't even know what to say about it because there's not much that we can discuss. Unfortunate situation. I'm not sure there's really anything else that we can even say about it. But we value you and value your children and all the experiences and how important that is. Always a lot of good things going on in the district. I know we have in science research a lot of students who have gotten into Genius Olympiad, and I mean that's going to be really exciting for them. Great opportunities. Heard great things about Mean Girls. Unfortunately, I was not able to make this one, but the reviews are fantastic.
Yeah,
So,
it was really good.
yeah. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and
Yeah.
onward.
I just want to first say thank you to the community for coming out. It's always important to hear from everybody. While the board is never at liberty to discuss personnel issues publicly, I would just like to say that this has nothing to do with any kind of board decision. So I'll just put that out there. Thank you to Katie and Meg and for joining us tonight and providing us with such great insight into the Wit and Wisdom curriculum that was added on this year. It was so great to see it in action that day when I went to Primrose, and to see how far ahead we are as a school district in implementing the science of reading and literacy initiatives. And it seems that the professional development money was money well spent, and you guys have done a huge amount of work, and it shows. So I hope that all of your teachers know that it was great. And even just feedback from hearing from kids who are in Primrose now, it's just like this. I mean, I wish my kids had some of this for their writing back in the day. Thanks to our architects for presenting on the bond project today. I literally look forward to the building tours in April 23rd and May 6th. I think it's so essential for the community to come in and see what we're looking to use the money for before deciding to vote. I think, we're capped each year as a district as to how much money we can raise through taxes as a school district, including using the 2% for inflation, despite it being well over that the past several years. So every year the prices do go up and on things we have to fund, and every year we have to absorb as much of that cost as we can so that we don't have to cut things or teachers. And I just want to say, Chris, you've always do an excellent job on planning ahead and looking at the retirements in our buildings and taking that in conjunction with our lower enrollment. And as each class graduates and a new one comes in with less students, so we can shift around teachers and not have to hire those replacements after retirement. So thank you for that. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to the Science National Honor Society Club Fair. They host at the middle school for 8th graders every year. It's a great event where 8th graders can learn about the different science clubs before transitioning to the high school. And they have to answer questions, and they can earn extra credit for their science grade. So it's always a great event that the Science National Honor Society does. You can see pictures on the Facebook page. I know they were taken. And then the Science Honor Society, as well as the SIS PTA, helped the kids at the SIS have a very successful science night at SIS, which was great. I was also able to stop by opening day of our exciting baseball fields to see the varsity boys baseball team take the field, and Harry and Chris got to throw out the twin pitches, which was very exciting. There was video in case anyone hasn't seen it. I don't know if it's been posted yet, but I'm happy to share it.
Did you get the speed?
We made it to the plate.
You made it to the plate.
Both made it to the plate.
They were sweating there for a little bit on that. I know that the fields look great. The fields look absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to see the softball field in action. So Chris is going to get back to us on what that date is. It might be tomorrow. I know the girls have been able to start using it, so I can't wait to get in a game there. And again, congratulations to the cast of Mean Girls, the musical. The show was phenomenal. It was so great, I saw it twice. The level of talent is just so amazing in our schools, and I know Dr. Bronstein even had the opportunity to come and see the play on Sunday, and he really enjoyed it. I mean, a live band, the whole thing, like, it was just beautiful. And finally, I want to say that the board has been talking about this since last year, but I worked with Kim Blau, and we added a community questions and answers to our Board of Education page. So now when the board gets questions during public comment and that they're later answered in an email by a respective administrator or whoever's responsible for that topic, we can post that answer to the general public as appropriate. Obviously, it wouldn't be able to relate to anything personal, confidential, personnel matters, etc. But things that we can share, such as, for instance, I started the page with an email answering questions surrounding the recent baseball merger. I also plan to add an update on the regionalization plans that, as we were at PNW, or as PNW BOCES likes to call it, collaboration, which is really what it is, which Harry and I had attended the convening last night with 15 of the 18 component school districts in our PNW BOCES, and we talked about some of the major topics that we were going to be looking into potentially collaborating on in the future if it works for our school district. Again, commits us to nothing right now. So, and yeah, I look forward to the tours and our Citizens Finance Committee meeting tomorrow morning.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
I'd also like to thank Liz and Meg and Katie and for their presentation tonight. But the board got a chance to see Wittenberg in action and that. But I'd like to thank them for all of the hard work last year, and not just Primrose administrators and teachers, but SIS also, because they did a lot of background work to make the appropriate selection of Wit and Wisdom. I know they reviewed a number of different manufacturers' works, and it was truly a team effort. And this year, we're getting to see exactly how that is paying off with the students at both Primrose and SIS. So thank you all for that, and to the administrators and staff at SIS who didn't present tonight. I'd also like to congratulate the Mean Girls cast and crew at the high school for an excellent job. Dr. Bronstein did attend last Sunday. I wasn't able to, but I was glad that he was able to make that. Chris and I did throw out the pitch on the opening day of the baseball field. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing, and the softball field is also amazing, and the girls have started using it for practices, and the first home game is coming up soon, depending on weather. Also want to mention that flyer went out for the second annual Tusker Cafe, which is going to be April 24th here in the middle school downstairs, and welcome everyone to come. On the flyer, there is a QR code for you to sign up. As on the flyer for the building tours, there's a QR code that you can access and sign up so that we have an idea of how many people will be coming. And last thing is, I know it's hard to believe, but next week there is a vacation. I wish everyone a happy vacation and well-deserved, getting through the long stretch since the February break, and maybe it will help clear up some of the illnesses and absences that we've had, both staff and students, over this past few weeks. So that's it for me.
Okay. Resolved that this workshop meeting of the Board of Education be adjourned.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?